1. My childhood was peppered with moments of dread and fear, which today I couldn't tell you if they were imagined or not. The ghostly figure that frequently roamed past my door night after night, was it the ghost of the previous owner who died in the house, or just my child brain making shapes out of the darkness? Was there something malevolent in the basement, or was my imagination running overtime because I was small and easy to scare? I'll always doubt those memories, but never shake the feeling that they really happened. Part of the reason I can't shake that feeling is because I know I did not imagine the TV. The TV was in the basement, which I had problems with. The basement felt oppressive and dangerous, even though it was well-lit and carpeted. I'd risk going down there, though, because how else was I going to watch TV? It was a boxy TV and VCR combo, and most of the time it was just fine. I'd watch my shows, hit the big red power button, and then sprint up the stairs after turning out the light. Except, sometimes, the TV would turn back on before I could get to the lights. I'd be walking away and I'd hear the screen pop back on. And I would know the TV was not okay. Normal TV had a tiny digital display under the screen that would light up when the TV was on and tell you what channel you were watching or the volume level or whatever. Possessed TV didn't need to show me anything. Didn't bother lighting up that display at all. Normal TV would turn on and the volume would be at whatever you last left it at. Possessed TV started with no sound at all, but it would get louder and louder and louder until I was covering my ears in pain, desperate to turn it off. As a kid, it was terrifying. The first few times it happened, I would frantically push the red power button, but it didn't matter. None of the buttons would do anything. I couldn't change the channel, I couldn't lower the volume. The only thing I could do was unplug the damn thing, and when I did, the picture would hang on the screen, slowly shrinking back into itself. I needed my TV to be normal TV, so I would plug it back in, turn the power back on, and then turn it back off just to make sure it was normal. Usually it was. Sometimes it wasn't. This went on for a long time, but I got used to it. It was still scary, but I knew what steps to take to make it stop. It was our ritual, and if I was fast enough, I could get to the outlet before the volume was loud enough to hurt my ears. One day it got really weird. It had done its whole possessed TV routine, but I was quick and unplugged it. I plugged it back in and hit the power button, and there was a loud pop. The TV screen flashed, but did not turn on. I smelled smoke. I tried hitting the power button some more. That didn't do anything. So I looked around and saw the power cord wasn't in the outlet. I reached to plug it in, but discovered I could not. At the end of the cord, where the plug usually sat, there were just frayed and burned wires. It took me a while to find the plug because it had apparently shot all the way across the room. My parents had to take it to get it repaired. It was gone for days, but when it came back, it had a brand new plug at the end of the cord. My memory gets fuzzy after that. I don't remember if it ended up coming back downstairs. We moved away from that house by the time I was 10 or 11. I don't know. Maybe it was just a messed up TV, but I have never heard of a plug shooting out of a wall outlet hard enough that it separated from the cord and ended up on the other side of the room. Regardless of whether it was supernatural, it really upset me for a long time. Talking or writing about it still gives me the creeps. 10 out of 10 would rather just think there wasn't anything out there. 2. To preface, I've grown up in various houses with my family where things would go missing and they'd reappear in one of a couple of places. One where you know for a fact you left it, a long time after the fact, or 2, in the freezer. This would happen especially with keys or wallets. I always worried about it happening with newer key fobs, but thankfully it hasn't as far as I've recalled, or that anyone has mentioned in the family. I think my mom mentioned it started, or activity really picked up around the time a cousin of hers passed in one of our old houses, when she, her sister, her mom, and her dad were living in another country for a while. And so another part of the family was borrowing the house after barely giving birth to their first son. I digress. I currently live with my partner, whom I've warned ahead of moving in with him that stuff happens sometimes. It happened at other times I moved out, and it gets frustrating. But you just call out to Ghosty to give your stuff back, and usually you find it shortly after. When we moved into this apartment, it was pretty new. I did get some weird vibes, but I didn't think much of it. We got a 3-year-old hyperactive cat about a year after moving in. Oddly enough, even as hyper as he is, he would occasionally sit there and stare at the walls or corners and try to get into rooms we have doors shut to, and we're not in. By now, we know he doesn't like when we lock him out of a room, and we're in there with him. So we get confused when it looks like he's chasing someone to a door and scratching trying to get in. He's also a tri-paw, so he can't jump on counters without a chair next to it. When he gained the confidence to climb onto the counters, shortly after the treat bag went missing, we assumed he took it and stashed it. But we don't have a very large apartment, and we checked every inch of the apartment. He normally hides his toys under the rug by one of his cat trees, or maybe under my desk. Maybe he accidentally pushed it under the couch, so even he couldn't get to it. No, not there either. Also not in the litter box. His toys have also been disappearing. Which is strange, but it's not like he has a shortage of them anyway. It's just another odd thing. The toys pop up occasionally, a couple at a time, only when others go missing. Almost as a trade, but we can't find where they've gone. A few days ago, mind you, the chair is still moved away, keeping him off the counter. His treat bag popped back up. We've had him 4 months now, so the bag has been gone for 4 months. And we had purchased a big treat box when the bag went missing. I asked my partner where he found the bag of treats. He said he didn't know it had been found, and didn't even notice him on the counter. In my head, I'm doing the math and trying to make sure he's not messing with me. But the treat bag has been gone for 4 months, and the cat hasn't learned how to return the bag of treats, and wouldn't return a full bag of treats to the counter next to the box of cat treats and the catnip. And it doesn't have puncture marks from the cat's teeth or claws. So that means Ghosty has now followed me, and I don't know if I feel happy to have my mischievous little friend, or honored, or if I should feel slightly annoyed Ghosty is keeping stuff for that long. 3. My family moved to an upper-middle-class town in Connecticut when I was about 8 years old in 2001. The house was on a quiet, dead-end street and was built in the 1960s, so needless to say, it was not old or creepy by any stretch. When we moved in, I remember just being creeped out by the new sounds the house made, as any 8-year-old would. From about age 8 to 14, I never really experienced anything strange other than the occasional feeling of being watched or seeing something in the corner of my eye. When I was about 14 or 15, there were a lot of things going on in my life. My older brother moved away to college, and both my grandparents, who I was very close with, both became very ill at the same time, and caused a lot of stress on my parents who were supporting them financially over this time. My first real experience was when I had a very strange dream, and woke up to the sound of very heavy breathing that was coming from my room, like within feet of my bed. The noise went on for about an hour before I got the courage to sit up in bed. When I did, the noise moved to my brother's room down the hall, and then to my parents' room. The noise continued from when I originally heard it around 2 a.m. until about 5:30 or 6 a.m. It was unmistakably a heavy breathing sound. When I asked my parents and my brother about the noise, nobody heard anything. My father was the only one who acknowledged me, saying, "Sometimes I have bad dreams too, but I pray and it goes away." Shortly after this happened, I had moved to my brother's room in the basement when he went to college. As anyone would, it took me a week or so to get used to the new noises in the basement, and the fact that I was alone in the basement. The second occurrence was much more evil in nature. I remember waking up after a very strange dream, again about 1:30, 2 a.m. When I woke up, I was unable to move any part of my body other than my head. I'm sure many people will attribute this to sleep paralysis, which I still suffer from, but this occurrence was 100 times more intense than any other sleep paralysis event. Shortly after realizing I couldn't move, I saw a face. The best way to describe it was skeletal and smoky in appearance. The face appeared mere inches from mine, and it smiled at me, but in a very evil, Joker-style, wide smile. I was eventually able to say the name of Jesus after probably 5 seconds, which felt like 5 hours, and the face and presence left instantly. I commanded the spirit it was not welcome and commanded it to leave in the name of Jesus. Once I did that, the air in the room became lighter immediately. Fast forward to when I was about 23. I had left home and joined the military for several years, and moved back home for about a year when I left the service. I started dating my now wife shortly after returning home, who would get snowed in a lot at my house. But being the strict Christian house, we were not allowed to stay in the same room, so she slept in the spare room in the basement at least once or twice a week. After a few months of this, I was getting her room ready, and she told me that she hated sleeping in the basement alone. Now, mind you, I had not told her of any of my encounters to this point, out of fear of her thinking I was lying. When I asked her more specifically why, she said that she frequently hears the sound of very heavy breathing moving around in different areas of the basement. She also said that she hears someone walking around upstairs, pacing for hours in the same area. The area she specified where it was coming from was the upstairs living room, an area seldom used, and definitely not early in the morning for hours at a time. Unrelated, but in the time I lived there and had friends over, a number of them said they didn't like staying in my house, and most of them refused to stay the night. 4. I live in an apartment-style condo, and all our entrances are private from the outside, think motel. This summer, new renters moved into a unit downstairs, catty-corner to me. They were a very sweet older couple in their 80s. I spoke to the wife a bit when our paths crossed, and waved to the husband when I saw him. One morning in late August, I hear a loud smashing and crashing sound, and I run to my sliding glass door and see one of the exterior tempered glass windows has shattered. I go outside to investigate and don't see anything that could have caused this. I check my security cameras and nothing. The glass just shatters out of thin air. I shrug it off and go about my day. A few hours later, my parking lot is filled with emergency services. There is a fire truck and an ambulance. I see the state police pull in and I think, oh no, something has happened to the couple downstairs. I rush out to make sure they are okay, and the EMT gives me a look. I see the wife is on the porch with her son, bawling. Since she has someone to support her, I go back to my unit and give them space. Later I find out the husband has passed in his sleep, sometime between 9 a.m. when the wife woke up, and noon when the son came to visit and found him. The window shattered at 10:29 a.m. My neighbor swears it was related. I am skeptical, but what do I know? Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. I hear a knock-knock on my slider door, followed by a slam. My dog gets up and is facing the corner looking at something I can't see. Her hair is standing up. She is growling. Things in the corner of the room start falling. I calm her down. It was strange to say the least, and I think back to the old man in the window. Shrug it off and go about my day. This past weekend, I'm getting in my Tesla. As I go to sit down in the driver's seat, I catch a glimpse of the radar showing a human figure walking along the car toward the driver's side front door. I close the door and look up to see nothing there. I turn back to the radar and keep watching. On the screen, I watch as the figure walks up to my door, turns to face it, and pauses for a few seconds before walking to the back driver's side door where my dogs are anxiously waiting for a joyride, turns to face it, and pauses for a few seconds before vanishing. A few days later, I tell my husband. He says, "Oh yeah, that happened to me yesterday." It is a system glitch. I saw a human figure walk to the driver's side door, pause and vanish. It was the system lagging and showing me walking to the car and getting in. Here's the thing. I don't think that is what was happening. The Tesla radar system has never showed a lag to my knowledge, and it has never done it in the thousands of times I've gotten in the car. The other problem with that theory is the figure did not follow the path I took. I let the dogs in the car and then went back inside to grab something I missed. When I returned, I went right to the driver door and got in. It doesn't track. Fast forward to last night. My husband turns out the lights in the kitchen and living room and goes to bed while I am in the shower. I get out of the shower and head for bed when I notice the kitchen light is on. I grumpily and begrudgingly turn the light out and go to bed. In the night, I wake up and notice the hallway seems illuminated by light from the kitchen and living room. I ignore it and go back to sleep. My husband gets up before me to go to work. This morning, my husband asks me why I left the kitchen light on last night. I didn't. I turned it off. I know I did. My friend made me download some Ghost Tube app today. I had it on for a few minutes while talking to her on the phone. I thought words or phrases would just appear on the screen. Apparently the app plays audio it is picking up. So out of nowhere, the app starts speaking and I freaked out and shut it off. I didn't want to do it. It was against my better judgment because I don't like even thinking about stuff like this, and I definitely don't like to mess around with it. I also didn't want to use some potentially scammer app and increase my paranoia. But here we are, spiraling, and on Reddit. This just feels like a lot of unexplained weird happenings in a short period of time. 5. So I know a lot of people will say, "This really happened," or "My third cousin's dog roommate had the same thing happen to them." But I am 100% serious when I say that I was plagued by spirits in my youth. I'm not going to go through every experience, possibly saving them for later, but the one that was scratching at the back of my mind right now is what we're going to talk about. I used to visit graveyards a lot in my youth and never really thought anything about it. I mean, it was the cool thing to do at the time. But one night I started to see shadows from the corner of my eyes. I could always see stuff normal people couldn't, at least when I was a kid. A few meds and hospital visits later, and my parents now refer to it as my schizo phase. They are not the heroes in any story, don't worry. But the meds never worked, and I learned not to talk about it. Well, back to the shadows. They were always far away, always moving just outside my direct eyesight. This was hardly the worst of the stuff I experienced daily, so I ignored it for a while. I don't remember the exact circumstances that may have triggered it, but they started popping up during the day, never in a pattern or with any reason that I could deduce. More active as time went along. I thought it was a playful something, I'm not sure, but I was disarmed. That was until I noticed it getting closer one day. Normally I'd follow the shadows as they stayed out of sight, but one day they stopped. It stopped. In the middle of school lunch, my shadowy friend stopped, the dark figure looming and lurking over the kids. I was terrified, needless to say. I tried to move my gaze, ignoring it, but the image was burned in my head. The darkness behind my eyes is now home to its haunting visage. I shakingly looked back as it was facing me. I say look, but it had no features, at least that I can recall years later. It was like a black energy stood towering even over the teachers. I ran to the bathroom and hid there. When I was punished by my folks, I just said I was sick. Of course, I couldn't tell them. I couldn't go back to the loony bin. So I swallowed up my fear and just tried to avoid it. I took every club and sports activity that would get me out of school, but it was still there, creeping ever closer. Even writing this, I feel the fear still everything. I have always been inclined to the dark, emo edginess aside. One of my first ghost-like encounters conditioned me that the real monsters could get you even in the light. So it was always to be blissfully unaware in the dark, and then terrified in the light. What was a shadow except the form cast off something else? My poor naive mind. This thing or things would follow me, inching closer, but only at school. Till one day I was getting a drink of water, unable to sleep. Warm milk is the beverage of choice for late nights. I got milk from the fridge. As I passed the door, out of the corner of my eye, the porch light was blacked out. I turned in terror, but nothing. I thought maybe I was seeing things. I poured my milk and stuck it in the microwave. I sat contemplating girls, homework, and everything a kid would do at that age. Again, I saw the porch light dim, only dim. I thought maybe the light was going out. I relaxed in the chair again. It was then the black arm waved right next to me. Before I could react, I was dragged into our basement. I wish I could tell you what happened after, but I don't know. All I remember was screaming, digging my nails into the floor, watching them peel as I was dragged down. My parents, the ever so graceful drunks, were plastered, and probably didn't hear or care. The next thing I do remember was waking at the bottom of the stairs, heading towards them, covered in bruises and cuts. My mom yelled at me to get ready for school. She saw all the wounds and chalked it up to falling down the stairs at night, and let me stay home one day. Lucky me. The shadows stopped after that day. Well, at least to my knowledge. I always theorize this, but that's for another time. For now, I'll leave you with this story and a bit of advice. If you see something in the corner of your eye, maybe keep it there. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 401. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and please do support me on my Patreon page. $1 a month helps very much. Okay, we've no other business today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: what do you do when you can't sleep at night? When I was younger, I used to do what the OP in the last story there did. I'd warm up some milk. In the microwave was my choice. Warm it up, give it a stir, it was perfectly fine. These days, I find, as I'm older and my body decides to develop problem after problem, warm milk would probably not be good for me at night. So I tend to just have cool water by the bed, always. Like last night, had a bit of an acid refluxy situation, as has been happening a lot lately. I'll go through periods where it pops up now and again, and then it settles down, so it's whatever. So I just kind of sat up in bed, listening to whatever I was listening to on my phone. I think it was either Casually Comics or it was a Discworld audiobook. I honestly can't remember which one at the moment. And just sipping on cold water till things settled down. And eventually I got back to sleep, which was good, because sleep is good. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Paranormal Stories 399. I think this was about how easy is it for you to keep a sleep schedule. Let's see. Today's answer comes from Jane Okumas. You need an angry feather. Mine doesn't even need to be angry or even put out. Hell, it's a completely fine feather. Right now I'm having a lovely bout of insomnia. I anticipate being up for more than 24 hours. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I do appreciate your answer, and I hope you eventually got some good and proper rest. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.